Everything's Oh Yeah from Josie Cotton's new album, Pussycat Babylon. She's my guest on Revenge of the 80s Radio. Josie, when last we had you on, you and I discussed our love for the classic B-movie. We discussed a little bit about that earlier in this interview. I wanted to get your thoughts on some of this as well. Fans will remember that Invasion of the B-Girls featured covers of songs from classic B-movie soundtracks, and a lot of modern producers have tried to recapture the magic of the old B-movies and haven't been able to do that, even though they've really tried hard with that. What do you see as why the 50s, 60s, and 70s B-movies had so much appeal and still have that appeal today?
I'm not quite sure why it continues to be an aesthetic that people seem to be so obsessed with, but I do think Quentin Tarantino really came close to reproducing that that feel that you get in those movies. And I always thought it was interesting when he described himself as a movie maker and not a filmmaker, because films are actually trying to say something, and he was never trying to say anything, which makes you freer to say something, if that makes any sense. I have met a lot of people who know these movies, and I don't know how they even see them, these kids, but I am a little scared and worried about the remake of Faster Pussycat Kill Kill. I think that is really playing with dynamite. I mean, how do you make that movie better than it was? Tourist Satana is not in it. Russ Meyer is not around. I really am reluctant to even see it. I'm so afraid they're going to massacre it, but I guess people are trying to recreate that era that you almost had to have been in to understand. So I don't know. I don't really have an exact answer to that question, Chris. It's vast. It's I could write a doctoral thesis on it, I suppose, but people smarter than me, I'm sure, have a lot of theories.
It seemed to be that the Herschel Gordon Lewises and the Roger Cormans of the world had some magic to what they did. They sort of inserted the right amount of camp to the movie, and I guess that's the word. Campy is used as more of a criticism or pejorative to older movies these days, but the fact is, just enough camp made these movies the classics they were.
Well, I agree, and I don't think being campy is a bad thing. I think you can say a lot more when you inject a certain amount of bad taste and humor rather than trying to make some statement about the world, which is usually boring, and you can't even tell anyone anything that's going to change their mind. But sometimes you can inject things by coming to the back door, so to speak, and that's always what the B movies, were for me. They just ignored all social norms and just went ahead with whatever ridiculous thing they were saying. And I don't know if some of these people were actually trying to be campy. I don't know if Roger Corman knew he was being campy, and that's almost like more amazing to me, that he was taking it his work rather seriously, which it's kind of fantastic. Wow, he didn't even know what it was that he was doing. So that's ironic too.
The other thing is, advanced technology may have spoiled some of today's moviegoers. What makes some of these old movies magical, especially the low-budget classics, is that they had to improvise many times. The science fiction movies didn't have a high budget. They didn't have a lot of special effects, so they had to do things that most directors wouldn't even think about doing today. They had to work harder with less to try to put out the best movie they could. These days, any producer can throw money at anything at this point, even if it's a slightly lower budget movie.
Well, that's true, and the better technology we have, the more they rely on that and not being creative. And also there was a lot more slack given to risque topics. there was more accepted nudity during Russ Meyer's time, and not that he used that to the best possible extent with all his enormous, gigantic boob movies, and not my favorite of his, but there is a lot more restriction on expression and whatnot. I really I'm really not that excited about a lot of movies anymore. It's really not my cup of tea, generally speaking.
And you don't see timeless horror movies today like you saw back then, mainly because A, of the special effects, B, they try too hard, and C, some of the best movies are remakes of the older movies.
Well, yes, exactly. Except that Wolfman was absolutely unwatchable, and as much as I love Benicio del Toro, it was sad to see him fall out of my own throne that I had put him on, because it was really such a horrible remake. And I have to say, though, I did love the Inception movie, and that is one instance where technology, I thought, really paid off. It was something I don't think it could have been done before. So there is hope for technology, Chris. I don't completely reject all technology.
Well, Josie, you talk about disappointment. I'm a radio guy. When I heard that there was going to be a movie called Wolfman, I went to it thinking it was a biography of Wolfman Jack. Think how disappointed I was.
Oh! Well, then that's really sad.
I lead a sad radio life. There we go. They don't even do biographies or movies about radio guys. I don't know. Nobody cares. Well, I guess because we all have the faces for radio. Josie Cotton's my guest on Revenge of the 80s Radio. I did want to ask you, Josie, what are a couple of your favorite classic B movies?
I have to say that I love a movie called Danger Diabolik. Did you ever see that one?
Yes, I like that one.
Yeah, that's pretty lovely. And I like some really obscure ones. I don't know if you ever saw Alice in Acid Land. That was a really odd one. And not a lot of people saw that. But I also like some of the classic ones. I don't know if you call them B movies. They are now. But Planet of the Apes, I thought was pretty amazing. And that was, I guess, a big budget movie at the time, I'm guessing. Those were pretty amazing, and they stand up. For me, I live in my own world, Chris. I don't know what I'm talking about with all the stuff. I look at them and I have my own, reaction. So I'm probably saying a lot of things that someone might, disagree with, whatever. But I just watch them as they come up now. I don't watch the same ones over and over, but the ones on my record, Invasion of the Beat Girls, are some of my favorites, and all, the Russ Meyers, and Beyond the Valley of the Dolls is untouchable in my opinion in terms of a B movie. Yet it had big funding, so we're getting into terminology I don't even understand, because they did have a big budget, but that is definitely a B movie, and they wouldn't allow that kind of nudity now, I don't believe so.
What I really liked, Josie, was that your video for Man Eater was a lot like an old B movie.
Yeah, it was. It was funny. I brought the idea to my director, Jonathan London, and for a kind of a much trashier version of it, of reproducing that movie, and he wrote a script which made it into another kind of B movie, which was really fun, because it was a B movie about a B movie. I hope to do some more of those kind of videos. I'd actually love to do videos for all those songs, because they are classic movies and they kind of deserve, some acknowledgement. And since I stole their theme songs, basically, including Black Klansman, which...
That would be an interesting video.
Yeah. So there were a number that at some point I would just love to put into video format, representation of those movies and for that record.
Also, a video of Mothra would be fun, too, wouldn't it be?
Yes, it would be so fun.
Josie, you just finished a video for See the New Hong Kong from Pussycat Babylon, as we're talking about videos.
Well, it is like an Asian B-movie, love story, slash science fiction video that it has a lot of my own personal possessions in it, like my last video. I have a huge collection of Asian artifacts from Japanese and Chinese, and so we were able to, because of the nature of the title, See the New Hong Kong, we were able to put a lot of that into the video, and I think I've finally reached my satisfaction of all things Asian, because you don't get more Asian references than in this video. It's kind of insane.
See the New Hong Kong and other tracks on Pussycat Babylon really showed an interesting range to your vocal talents as well. One song that was a standout to me was Stop Iggy Pop, where you had that sultry voice for part of it during the verses. Then when you went to the chorus, it was a nice short staccato.
Yes, that was an experimentation of sounds that ended up having that title. I was writing the music before I had the lyrics, which is sometimes very hard to come back later and inject lyrics. I did not have a title for a long time, so the chorus was I just didn't know what the hell to do with that. And eventually I started noticing that it sounded very much like I was saying, Stop Iggy Pop. And I just thought that was like an amazing song title, and a story came from that title. It's very insane, a story having to do with aliens and someone who crashes and is hiding in a disco, and they're looking for Iggy Pop, and they have to kill him, and so that was totally doing it backwards. But yeah, that's a very techno song, and it's one of my favorite songs on the record. It was actually one of the songs I played every instrument on there except the drums.
Well, that's interesting.
I programmed it, and it was the first time I ever did absolutely the drum programming and the bass and the keyboard and all of it. So that was kind of a thrill to hear something that you are solely responsible for its creation, for good or bad. And that's something I do plan on doing a video for that one as well, and see what happens with that.
Aren't you worried that Iggy Pop's going to come out with a song called Stop Josie Cotton?
I could only pray he would. If there's any way I could get him in this video, I would so love to get his image. And if not, we will have a cardboard cutout, which will move around and be very much like those low-budget movies you were talking about, just a shameless stealing of his likeness.
With a string, and you can, like a marionette or something like that, you can walk him around.
Something like that, yeah.
I used to love the
something it will embarrass him completely, so he has to do the video or he will be embarrassed.
I used to love the old first seasons of Lost in Space where they showed the Jupiter 2 flying around. You could see the string. Chris?
Yes, there was an amazing English TV show, a science fiction called UFO. Do you remember that one?
Vaguely.
That was a good one. It was a very unsympathetic guy from the future who killed people and was very handsome and was a dark soul in this super mad pad futuristic spaceship kind of thing. It's wonderful. I think it's from the 60s, so that's something to look out for.
With me is Josie Cotton. Straight ahead, we'll talk more about her new album, Pussycat Babylon, and the Johnny Are You Queer video contest on Revenge of the 80s Radio.